Mercury is one of the most dangerous heavy metals you can be exposed to, and yet most people don't even realize how common it is. It's in all tooth fillings, certain fish, fluorescent light bulbs, industrial pollution, and even some cosmetics. We're not just talking about rare accidents here. Small but constant exposure is a reality for many of us. Now, a healthy body can handle tiny amounts, but if your detox systems aren't running smoothly, and let's be honest, for most people they're not, mercury can start building up. It hides in your tissues, especially in the brain, liver, and kidneys. And once it's in, it doesn't really like to leave. That's why I wanted to make an entire video walking you through the best protocol that I found to detox mercury safely, without shocking your system or making symptoms worse. This video will be very similar to my guide on detoxing heavy metals in general, but with a more focused view on mercury, because it is such a nasty toxic metal that many people unfortunately have to deal with. You see, the problem with mercury is how reactive it is. It binds to sulfur groups in your body, which is used in hundreds of critical enzymes. So when mercury latches on, it can disable key enzymes in your liver, brain, and also disrupt your energy metabolism. And if we follow the concept of ionic mimicry, where toxic metals can mimic essential minerals in the body and also displace them, then you would have to say that mercury mimics selenium and zinc, two trace minerals that are very important for antioxidative protection, hormone balance, and thyroid health. So mercury doesn't just cause damage on its own, it also gets in the way of the nutrients that your body needs to repair and protect itself. Some of the most common symptoms of mercury overload include brain fog and memory issues, mood swings or depression, fatigue that doesn't go away, tingling, numbness, or strange nerve sensations, a sensitivity to sound, light, or stress, and digestive problems like bloating, constipation, or food sensitivities. Now, of course, all of these symptoms are very vague and can also be caused by many other things. But keep in mind that depending on where the toxin accumulates, it will show up in different symptoms. So when mercury accumulates in your nervous system, the effect will be different from when it builds up in your gut, for example. Also keep in mind that a lot of people who struggle with mercury don't have one big exposure. It's more like a slow drip over years, maybe from their dental fillings, or maybe from eating a lot of tuna or sushi, or maybe because they live close to a factory. Obviously, in case of an acute toxicity, you want to go to the hospital and get medical attention. But this video is about getting rid of the mercury load that builds up slowly and over years. So it's about helping your body fix a long-term problem. Let's first talk about what I don't recommend, which is chelation therapy and the Cutler protocol. Chelation therapy is the most common approach to metal detoxification. Here you ingest a substance, a chelator, which comes from the Greek word for claw, which then binds to the metal and helps the body eliminate it. The chelators used here will be synthetic chelators such as EDTA, DMPS, or DMSA. These are sulfur-based synthetic amino acids that were made especially for the purpose of pulling out certain heavy metals from the body. If you go to your doctor and are diagnosed with heavy metal toxicity, this is what they will give you, usually in IV form, but they're also available in oral form. The problem with both IV and oral chelation therapy is that all chelating agents, but synthetic more so than natural ones, also help remove essential minerals. Even though each chelator is set to target only a specific metal, they always also act somewhat randomly and always also pull out some of your essential minerals. This is a serious problem for two main reasons. First, many people are already extremely deficient in minerals such as magnesium, zinc, chromium, selenium, and others. So if they lose even more of them, their symptoms will get worse. And second, the act of chelation further unbalances your body. Your doctor will usually tell you that they will replenish the vital minerals either with a supplement or by adding them directly to the IV. But in my experience, the net result is still often negative. I've simply seen too many people where chelation therapy either didn't work or even made things worse to recommend it to people. Redistribution can also be a problem, so when you drastically stir up metals with the chelator and your liver or kidneys aren't able to quickly eliminate them, so they get redistributed in other vital tissue. Again, the only time I would recommend chelation therapy is when you're exposed to a very high acute dose of a toxic metal that needs to come out immediately. In that case, obviously go to the hospital and act quickly. The second approach that I don't recommend is the Cutler protocol. It's all about using small, regular, oral doses of chelators every few hours, depending on the half-life of the chelator. The original protocol used DMPS, DMSA, and alpha-lipoic acid, but modern versions usually only use alpha-lipoic acid since it's the only natural chelator of the three and can be bought as a normal supplement. You would take it every 3 to 4 hours, and if you're very strict about it, you would even have to follow this schedule during the night, which obviously compromises sleep quality a lot. The reason for this tight schedule is that alpha-lipoic acid has a fairly short half-life, meaning it doesn't stay active in the body for very long. If you take it once and then let it wear off, it can drop metals in places you really don't want them, like your brain or kidneys, so the redistribution issue that I talked about before. But if you keep the levels steady by dosing every few hours, the supplement keeps holding onto the metal until it's fully excreted. The idea is that consistent around-the-clock dosing is key to doing it safely, basically. Now, I have to say that I like the general idea behind low dosing, especially if you suspect that you have a very high mercury load. When you take small, frequent doses, you will then avoid big spikes and crashes in your blood levels. Again, this helps bind the metal more gently and steadily instead of pulling out large amounts all at once. So for people who are already sensitive or are dealing with a lot of toxicity, this method definitely lowers the risk of harsh side effects. That being said, I still don't think alpha-lipoic acid should be a first-line detox agent because it's still a way of forcing metals out, and it doesn't align with the idea of ionic mimicry, where you need to replenish the minerals that the heavy metal is crowding out before using chelators. So then, what should you do if you want to get mercury out? Step 1 is to support your elimination organs, so your liver function, bile flow, and heavy metal detox pathways. This helps with overall toxin elimination and can already make a huge difference. I will link videos that talk about all of these in more detail. The most problematic organ will usually be your liver, because if your liver is sluggish, metals can get stuck in circulation or be reabsorbed into tissue. Step 2 is then to replace toxic metals with their nutrient counterparts. Again, this is the concept of ionic mimicry and refers to the ability of toxic metals to resemble and replace essential minerals in your body. This can happen at the site of transporters, ion channels, enzymes, and other proteins that normally interact with minerals. Basically, when you're low in a specific mineral, the body can then use a toxic metal instead, even though the enzyme won't work as well, of course. This is another reason we don't want to force toxic metals out, because it will take away what your body is currently working with. Instead, we want to make sure that you're no longer deficient in the toxic metal's nutritional counterpart, which allows your body to then release the toxin on its own. In case of mercury, it usually displaces zinc, selenium, and sulfur. So these three should be your main focus, and you will probably need to supplement, especially zinc. Selenium can sometimes be covered with Brazil nuts, but I usually prefer to use 100 to 200 micrograms of selenium yeast or selenomethionine instead. As for sulfur, try to include more sulfur-containing foods in your diet. For example, dairy and meat, or vegetables high in sulfur compounds like garlic, onions, leeks, and cruciferous vegetables. Next, we should talk about metallothionein. Metallothionein is a protein that helps your body bind and regulate metals, both toxic metals and essential minerals. It acts kind of like a metal chaperone, so it helps keep everything in balance. It is one of the most effective tools that our body has to eliminate heavy metals naturally, and it is often low in people with heavy metal toxicity, especially in the case of mercury toxicity. There are several ways to boost metallothionein production, but the most important cofactors are zinc and cysteine, because both are the building blocks for the metallothionein molecule. We already talked about zinc, so let's talk about how to get your cysteine in. It is found in most dairy, but good supplements would include whey protein or N-acetylcysteine. A common dose of N-acetylcysteine is 600 to 1,200 milligrams per day. And for zinc, you want to start small with maybe 10 milligrams or 15 and see how your body reacts. If you don't notice any side effects, you can then increase the dose to 30 milligram or sometimes even more. I wouldn't go higher than 50 milligram with the zinc though, because this can mess with other minerals like copper. Next to metallothionein, you also want to increase your antioxidant levels. When you start mobilizing mercury and bring it from your tissue into your bloodstream, that can cause a spike in oxidative stress. This stress damages cells, especially in sensitive areas like your brain, liver, and the gut. Antioxidants will help you protect your tissue by neutralizing the free radicals that mercury and the detox process can generate. Without enough antioxidants, you're more likely to feel worse during a detox, with things like headaches, fatigue, anxiety, or inflammation popping up. Vitamin C, vitamin E, glutathione, and selenium are especially helpful because they support both protection and elimination. They also reduce the chance that mercury gets redistributed and trapped in other parts of your body. So in short, antioxidants don't just make detox more comfortable, they also make it safer or more effective. You do need to be careful with dosing though, because too much of an antioxidant supplement and the antioxidant itself will become a chelator and start pulling more mercury out of tissue. So here's a general overview of the doses that I normally recommend. They will seem small to some people, but keep in mind that we want to gradually detox without overloading your system. In terms of vitamin C, you can start with 200 to 1000 milligrams. Vitamin E, 100 to 400 IU. Selenium, like I said before, 100 to 200 micrograms. And in terms of glutathione, this is discussed in a different video because it is a very complicated topic and you normally can't just take a glutathione supplement directly. Now, at this point, I should also talk about toxin binders like zeolite, chlorella, MCP, and the like. They can bind the mobilized mercury in the gut and are definitely helpful for some people. I use them only sparingly and usually rely on all the fiber from the vegetables I eat every day. But this comes down to personal preference and binder tolerance. It's also discussed in much more detail in a different video. Great, now that we're almost at the end of this video and you are already improving your liver and detox pathways, are working on increasing your mineral levels, metallothionein, and antioxidant support, now you can think about using a chelator. Like I said before, we never want to force metals out, so it's important to use chelators only when your body is ready. This is entirely optional and the steps we talked about so far are usually enough. But if you want to use a chelator, the only one I would recommend for mercury is alpha-lipoic acid, which is usually taken in doses of around 300 to 600 milligrams per day on an empty stomach. If you are very sensitive, you will have to use lower doses, sometimes much lower, for example 10 milligrams. But in such a case, it's usually better to go back to the basics like liver health and overall toxin elimination because it's a sign that your body isn't ready for a chelator yet. Okay, to wrap up this video, let me say that I believe the potential danger that mercury poses is definitely very high, and a lot of people have problems with getting it out of their bodies. Just like with all toxic metals, you want to go slow and make sure that you understand the whole process. So how it is first mobilized from your tissue, then sent to the bloodstream and liver, and then eliminated through your urine and bile. Make sure to give your body all the nutrients and cofactors it needs for the whole process, and don't rush things. That's how you avoid side effects and see actual results.